I will cover Hertfordshire's journey, the approach, project planning, implementation, and some technical aspects. I'll share with you some lessons learned along the way, and then we'll have a bit of a gaze into the future. So, from Private Finance Initiative, PFI, to Light Emitting Diode, LED, that's what those words stand for up there. And just by way of explanation in terms of the picture, this is one of the first roads that we converted to LED in the county. This is the A10, runs north to south in Hertfordshire, links to the M25. So quite an important strategic route, takes quite a lot of traffic. And what you can't really gain from that, but you would gain out on site, is that the white light, there's a different look and feel to what's been there for 50, 60, 70 years in terms of the old style orange glow type lanterns. And a statement of the obvious is the grass looks green, and I'll come back to that statement a bit later in the presentation. So, moving on to our strategic story. 2010 to 2017, where did those 7 years go? Just before I get into the narrative, those of you that may not know where Hertfordshire is, I've literally put it on the map for you there. South East England, close proximity to London. Just a bit of context for you. In Hertfordshire, 2 tiers of local government. The County Council is the local highway authority and the local transport authority. 10 districts are the local planning authority. Dimensions, 1 million residents, 500,000 homes. About 5,000 kilometres of roads. That's around 5,000 football pitches, to give it a bit of context there. And growth agenda affecting the whole of the UK. We're not an exception. By 2031, 90,000 new homes, 90,000 new jobs, about an additional 200,000 people on top of that 1 million residents, more infrastructure, possibly more lighting, who knows. So, yeah, big demands on the network. Locally, our traffic data shows that our network is probably busier by about 35% more than the national average because of this close proximity to the urbanisation of London and beyond. So, that gives a bit of context for you. Now moving on to street lighting, just a few statistics there. Got a quite high density in Hertfordshire, 100,000 lighting columns, 115,000 lanterns on those. And like a lot of authorities, ageing infrastructure, deteriorating, inefficient lighting, predominantly due to lack of funding over the years, and the traditional sort of sodium lighting. So, then we move on to the start of our story, 2010, 2011, and it was a bit like winning the lottery really, and then knowing that you've been told that your ticket's null and void. Successful in the PFI round, so we got the credits, and then along came the government spending review cuts, so it was then withdrawn. Were we downhearted for a little while, but then we thought, well, no, we need to pick ourselves up here. Coupled with that, though, is the austerity agenda, reducing revenue budgets, big theme for local government, increasing energy costs, big challenges, particularly for the public sector. So what we did, we seized the opportunity. We took the opportunity to review our street lighting service. And what we developed was a sustainable street lighting strategy based on affordable, safe and operational principles. And we adopted a 2-stage approach. So, moving on with that approach from 2010 to 2011 to the next few years. I won't go through all the points there, but just in terms of the headlines, what we were doing is getting some strategies endorsed as well as developing our business cases. So the first part of that 2-stage strategy, part night lighting, introduced, delivered on time, within budget, saved £1 million of our energy bill within a couple of years, paid back within 3 years. Had an internal scrutiny that demonstrated there was no adverse impact on road safety or crime, and that was supported by the Chief Constable of Hertfordshire, and reducing light pollution and sky glow, and that was supported by a statement by the Hertford Astronomy Group. So tick the boxes there. At the same time, October 2012, like a lot of local authorities, we have term maintenance contracts, entered into a new contract. Importantly, our term contract includes for refurbishment, and I'll come back to that later as we go through the presentation. Moving on a year, developing all the time our robust business cases, looking at whole life costs, life cycle planning. Yes, we looked at Green Investment Bank and Salix funding, but what we found favourable is that for us, our own internal capital funding mechanism, our terms and conditions are more favourable, and that still continues to be the case. But it's worth exploring those other avenues. At the same time, we were making the best use of the current technology at that time, but we were keeping one eye on the future. So the central managed system, the CMS, and the LED technology were starting to become more robust and reliable and affordable, which is quite important. But also we adopted an asset management approach in line with industry best practice. So our approach is data-driven, condition-led, and not based on age. And we've tested to date around 85,000 units. And what that has resulted in, of that testing, that's both structural and electrical, is that we've replaced 5,000 columns. Had we adopted the PFI model, we would have ripped out 70,000 columns that were absolutely fine, so long as they were demonstrated to be structurally safe and electrically sound. So it's about making the best use of what we've got. Some people may refer to that as sweating the asset. There's different terms for that. So, moving on, another year, 2014-15, we then went back to our highways panel and had some more strategies endorsed. Very important to get the political endorsement and support to take you through this journey. Variable lighting strategy, also for ad hoc replacement. So where we get columns knocked down, what goes back up, new column, and a new CMS and LED lantern, very important. But also for new works and new private developments, we want that consistency of approach across the whole of Hertfordshire. So again, we made sure that that was endorsed at our various panels. So, kicked off the project, phase 1, and we adopted a phased approach, 4 phases. And why did we do that? To target those lanterns that use the most energy and the most maintenance. So we worked down the hierarchy of our routes, and that was the basis for moving forward. And all of the phases satisfy our own internal business case, and they have a payback within 10 years, which we deem as favourable. So, moving on to 2015-2016. The other part of our journey, this is now, we're moving from 2014 to 2020 up to not just the current date, but beyond, and I'll explain that. So, again, 2015-2016, moved on to phase 2. These are all the lights which aren't part night lit, they're full night light, because when we developed the part night lighting, risk-based approach, we developed some exception criteria. Those lights that were close to junctions or conflict areas, they were kept in full night light. So this was the next phase. Again, delivered 2 time within budget. Total cost £7.5 million, savings £770,000 per annum. That includes energy, maintenance and carbon savings, because we get taxed on that. And again, within the 10-year payback. Moving forward, what we was able to do was to integrate phase 2 and phase 3. We're now picking off the lower hanging fruit. Those items which, not so much a saving in energy, but more in maintenance. These are the outlying settlements and the remote footpaths that cost more money to get to. So we actually integrated phase 3 within phase 2, again delivered on time within budget. So a good track record, and that was 8,700 units there. So all those within payback of 10 years, bringing us right up to date. Current financial year, phase 4. We were fortunate, and bear in mind we have to compete internally with other corporate funding initiatives, but because we keep delivering 2 time 2 budget, we keep getting the money, which is very good for highways. So we started dealing with or converting the remainder of our units, those 70,000 that are in part night light, because we've already sucked out the £1 million in energy from that particular project. £18.5 million over 3 financial years. And just want to emphasise the headlines there. So to date, on all of those phases and part night lighting, what we've converted is 50,000 units, and that includes 3,000 of those ad hoc knockdowns I was talking about. So when they go back up, we replace them as well. And in addition to the financial benefits, what we've seen is a reduction in the carbon in terms of tonnes per year, in terms of the emissions. I've got to mention as well, this year we've converted all of our Belisha beacons as well, so we're working our way around all of our higher electrical equipment to eventually convert them. And all of the phases we've gone through the revenue savings, and this is also cost avoided as well, have more than covered the cost of borrowing capital for all of our phases. So again, making a comparison with a PFI, total investment to date, £39.5 million, that equates to 22% of what would have been the PFI model. So we think that that's very good value for money. And the total savings, energy maintenance, carbon tax, just under £5 million per annum, and also importantly, that's saving in carbon emissions. That's reducing the pollution, and Andres mentioned a bit earlier about public health and so on. So that's another good contributor there. So moving on to project planning and implementation and technical aspects. Got a couple of slides on this. Very important to have strong, clear governance. We have a Highways Cabinet panel that manages the political process. We have a Highways Electrical Board and a project team. So that's very key in terms of having those strategies endorsed, getting the support, and keeping the project moving forward. Sustainable procurement, I mentioned our term maintenance contract. So we procured through our term maintenance contract to Ringway that then procured on our behalf. So the central management system, and this was all done through open competitive tendering, but through Ringway's procurement model, appointed Talenza. Prior to installing in Hertfordshire, they'd also installed in Essex. So we had an opportunity to see, was this working and was it reliable? And yes, it was, so that was good. LED, we've got a contract or through Ringway with Urbis. But what our phased approach also offers is an opportunity to test the market at each of those phases as we go forward. And as part of phase one, what we did at the same time, so as well as converting those lanterns, we installed 48 base stations. So what have we got across the whole of Hertfordshire in phase one? And the top photograph there shows that, is this invisible radio network that gives us 100% coverage. That means we can pick up any additions as they come online immediately. And that's one of the main technological changes, moving from the traditional photo cell to the Wi-Fi telecell in terms of your communications. But what this does offer us as well is it's the remote management and the fault detection of faults. This is where the change in technology really does help also in terms of the customer journey. In terms of the LED, again, looking at what we've gone for in terms of our design is what's deemed a sort of a soft white light, 4,000 degrees Kelvin, for those that need to know the technical aspects. Also we have dimming and trimming, and our switching levels are 30 lux off, 30 lux on, in terms of the on and off energy requirements to turn those on and off. Also, going back to what we had endorsed at the panel, we've got dimmed by 25% between the hours of 11 PM and 6 AM. Again, risk-based approach. That's where pedestrian and traffic levels are lower. So again, whatever we do has to be safe and operational, going back to that basic principle that I mentioned at the very beginning. In addition to the testing, and obviously you've got a photograph at the bottom there in terms of an operative, fitting the lantern, testing to ensure structural and electrical. Obviously the lantern, or the LED, is slightly heavier than a conventional lantern, but it's slimmer, so there's less windage. But in addition to the column testing, there's bracketry testing as well to ensure that what we do is safe. And also we simplified the design, so apart from conflict areas where we do comply with a British standard and we document any departures from that, we've adopted a point-for-point, light-for-light replacement, so the light distribution is no worse than existing. Very important in terms of our approach. But what's key to this, in terms of the innovation and sustainability, is this is about installing new technology on existing assets that are structurally sound. And what this also means is that this is reduced wastage. It means that maintenance visits are reduced whilst maximising the recycling. So, just moving on to the next slide. On the project, an aspect that I wasn't fully aware of until I got into the project. We're dealing with thousands of units here that have to be produced and manufactured somewhere, and so this is global in terms of production. Make sure you've got warranties in place. Check with your legal insurance teams. If you don't, it might be that you're not covered. For example, catastrophic failure. So make sure you've got comprehensive insurance and cover on all of your products. It's sometimes something that we don't always think about. Speak to your meter administrator and your energy provider. If you don't declare your energy load and savings, then you may not be in compliance with your service level agreement with your local distribution network operator. So again, point to check. Again, what we have is with the CMS cloud-based system that we need to integrate with our asset management system, which is Confirm. And what that will give us is automatic fault generation, and this in turn will improve the customer journey, because eventually we don't need to receive public reported faults because we're already detecting them remotely. And what we are moving towards is an interactive map where public can self-serve and see when the lights are out, they're on, when they're being fixed, etc., etc. So that's where we're moving towards. What's been proved very helpful is having continuous engagement with the supply chain. So not just Telenza and Urbis, but right the way through to subcontractors, and to keep that going. And all phases of our approach have run contiguously. So that means we don't have to demobilise, remobilise. We share the forward plan and programme. So that enables producers to run their production lines just in time. Bear in mind, we're not the only client here asking for the LED lanterns and CMS modules. What we did as well, we didn't treat this project in isolation. We've combined it with holistic management, so tying it up with our routine maintenance, and so that in terms of refurbishment and replacement, and also recycling those existing lanterns for future phases. That's so pending conversions in later. But again, something to be aware of is that manufacturers are responding to the market. They are running down their production of conventional lanterns already. So that's something to be aware of. And if anyone does want a few thousand lanterns, I've got a few that we can sell at a reasonable price to you. Just a point to be aware of. What we've done as well, again, just top right shows a conventional LED type lantern. There's LED ray there. So you can see changes in technology, different light distribution, far more efficient and effective lighting to the right level, to the right place, to the right time. Completely different to conventional lighting. Mentioned about holistic management, pilot projects. We've undertaken some pilot projects, interactive trials with the public and members in terms of what else can we do in terms of the dimming and the trimming. This is about squeezing every last ounce out of our energy requirements, because energy prices are only increasing. Lastly, political engagement. The bottom photograph there, that was our former, he's still alive, but that was our former Highways executive member, and we convinced him to go up in a MUP, and very proactive, very supportive of the industry and the technology. So very key to get that political endorsement in terms of that leadership, and that is essential. So, I want to share with you a few lessons learned. Just a couple of slides on this. I was going to mention in terms of why is there a connection with lighting to wildlife and bats? Well, it's the law. 16 species of bats in the UK, 11 of them that to be in Hertfordshire, and they're quite active. Interfere with the bats, their habitats and their foraging routes at your peril. You could be breaking the law. So again, you need to comply with the relevant legislation, but you need to do more than that. This is about engagement with the relevant parties. For us, engagement with the Herts and Middlesex Bat Group. We also contributed to studies and independent trials, and there was an independent study which the outcome was that LED does not affect bat activity at streetlights. So that was very positive. Also within the industry, we've had various statements come out from Public Health England, its equivalent in Europe. There is no detrimental impact on health in terms of the public, but also operatives. Our LED lanterns have a zero risk rating, that's very important as well. But also we've undertaken equality impact assessments, no detrimental impact there, environmental impact and sustainability statements. We benchmark with other authorities, those that already had the conversions and were using the CMS. And this is about sharing the knowledge and the intelligence across the public and the private sector so we can all benefit. Sell the benefits isn't just about saving on energy and maintenance and cost avoided, and also it's about corporately, are we doing our bit, sustainability, to actually reduce our demand on energy. It's also about reducing carbon. We also improve the visibility and reduce that light pollution. We hold regular lessons learnt sessions with our whole supply chain, so we're not complacent. There's always aspects to learn, and sometimes those best lessons come from the operatives on site. So again, it's very useful to have that continuous feedback with the whole supply chain. One team, joined up approach. Street lighting for Hertfordshire is quite a significant contributor to our corporate carbon reduction initiative. And we've got a total energy bill at the moment of about 4.7 million. That's about 50% of our total corporate energy bill, so quite significant. Just some more lessons learnt. It's had a positive impact on our asset inventory. I mentioned at the very beginning, grass is green. Yeah, that's an obvious statement. But what we do in Hertfordshire, all our strategic routes, we cut at night. The operatives' feedback, it's a safe environment, very clear visibility. There's a very, the white light gives a very good deal of clarity, and they feel safe and comfortable. In technical terms, that's deemed a good colour rendition. What that means for the customer, less disruption to the travelling public. Talked about sharing our programme. It's also about the logistics, factory fitting the nose on top of the lanterns. That all speeds up when you're dealing with thousands of units in between different nations, across the globe. What was another important lesson for us is that because the LEDs are so energy and light efficient, in some cases there may be situations where you need to reduce that light distribution, particularly in residential roads. So we've had internal shields inbuilt into the lanterns. In some other cases where you've got remote footways and cycleways away from the carriageway, you may, in a perverse way, need to make those lanterns less inefficient by spreading the light distribution. You can do that by increasing the angle of tilt, the size of the lantern, and so forth. So again, just be mindful about those particular aspects. Sometimes one size doesn't fit all. You need to be flexible. Our contractor has developed some very simple podium steps on remote footpaths, speeds up productivity and reduces costs. Data capture, work scheduling, e-coding is all electronic. Test certificates just speeds up the process and the auditing that we undertake. We also share the knowledge of the network, also the CMS. That means if we have some events, so for example in Hertfordshire we've got Watford and Watford Football Club, when there's big events, we can tailor the lighting to suit those events. Just by an iPhone, for example. That's what the power of this technology gives. It's also about robust consultation and proactive communications, engaging with the stakeholders, including the emergency services, district and parish councils, public and local members. What we've offered our parishes as well, we're rolling out this big programme, we're offering them the economies of scale that we can convert their lights at a discounted price as well. So again, we've got several parishes that are jumping on our programme for those benefits. Also, in terms of the technology, it's plug and play. You haven't got operatives now filling about some wires halfway up a column. You take out the whole unit, much speedier operation, safer for the operatives on site. Key point. Range of media that we used, and to date we've received very positive comments, minimal complaints. Someone mentioned a bit earlier about the industry recognition. And we were very honoured and proud to have won the CIHT Sustainability Award for this year, and it's always good to celebrate success, and this is our unofficial champagne moment. Excellent team effort, that's the point to reinforce. That's on the project, not so much the drinking of champagne, although we rose to the challenge. So again, that was fundamentally in terms of the teamwork and the collaboration right the way through the supply chain. So for Hertfordshire, what does the future hold? Next 3 to 5 years and maybe a bit beyond. So let's have a quick gaze into the future that we term positive evolution. A number of strands there. Got all this technology. What more can we do with it? Andreas mentioned about connected automated vehicles, and also as you expand out from that, it's making more use of this technology, this remote management cloud-based systems. Is there opportunities to integrate on our contract? We've got over 40 different systems, for example, so there must be efficiencies looming there. We're looking at further dimming and trimming, completely in line with the new code of practice, which is risk-based. We're looking at dynamic dimming, for example, and also an intelligent and smart LED approach. We're already looking at the next phase. This is mopping up all of our other higher electrical equipment, high masts, subways, illuminated signs, for example. Putting in a capital bid, and this is subject to funding for next financial year, hopefully over 3 financial years. And then moving beyond that, how can we make best use of industry best practice and the toolkits? Through this process, we developed an extensive and robust testing regime, condition-led, as I mentioned, giving us a 6-year testing strategy. And that is very key about updating and maintaining your asset inventory, because for unmetered energy, then it's our responsibility to ensure your data is as accurate and up to date as possible, because that is what generates the energy bill. I mentioned about the phase 5. Also, it's about looking at integrating BIM and asset management. What more can we do there? The picture down the bottom, we're one of the few authorities that has got its own integrated transport traffic control centre, got good visibility across the whole of the network. Also in there, we've got Ringway's control hub. So we've got the integration of our maintenance works as well as our emergency response. So more potential to be done on that integration. But it isn't just about the systems, it's about the evolution of transport, future highways Andros mentioned. You've heard about the Internet of Things, connectivity, automated vehicles, mobility as a service. It's about giving customers that open data and choice as to thinking about the choice of planning a journey and what's open to them. Sector trends, demand has vastly changed over the last few years. Big move from orange to white light, as well as the electronic control gear, as well as the part night lighting and the dimming and trimming. So, for Hertfordshire, last slide, the future is bright, the future is white and not orange. Thank you.